Warning! The following gameplay video was created by a scrub. If scrub gameplay disturbs you, stop the video now. Okay, starting in 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome to a Ring of Red video. How long has it been since I've done something like that? Let me take a look at my watch. It's been 4 months, give or take. Well, so diving right back in, our split party has reunited, and we're pincering the enemy, and we outnumber them about 2 to 1, which is, by the way, what pincering is for. There's a reason you don't do that when your numbers are even, if you can help it. And the reason is the enemy can just turn on one side, annihilate them, and turn back and annihilate the other side if they didn't run. Well, video games are different, I guess. You might get a special pincer bonus. At least I know that there's skills that you can do with that in Dynasty Warrior Tactics and blah blah blah. Getting off topic. These guys who are between us are doomed. One of the things I noticed looking back on my earlier videos is that when I was doing it in text style, I had a much better insight into the tactical situation. At least that's how it looked from where I was reading it. And that's because as part of the editing process, I had to take a close look at what was going on as I created all that text. And of course, this method being rather different, I often miss a few things or forget why exactly I was doing something, whereas when I'm editing it in my editor, crazy, I'll just look ahead or take a quick glance through the battle beforehand. Honestly, I could probably do that for these videos as well, but I'm too lazy, I guess. Anyway, this particular style is not working as well as I hoped. At least, that's how it seems now that I'm looking back on it. And that's because of past me not doing what I expected him to do. So, how do I solve this problem? Using text, well, it takes too long. And these videos are delayed more than enough already. But of course, this commentary style also has some rather serious problems. So that leaves live commentary, where I can tell everyone what I'm thinking as I do it. And, well, that's a lot more suspense for me, for sure. It'll also lead to fewer, well, of course I'm going to win because you're watching this video, and I didn't grammar that right at all. Anyway, why am I walking forward here? Well, if you're not too distracted by what I was saying, you'll have noticed that the other side is using shrapnel rounds. And if you've been paying attention to the mechanics of this game during my extremely long absence, you'll know that anything other than a light AFW can't fire shells like that at short range. Of course, my own guns aren't great at short range against infantry, but they're using only one anti-infantry unit there. So their rocket launchers are gonna get wrecked. It seems like a pretty bad situation to have to do this dance because the enemy loaded shrapnel, but honestly I'd rather deal with this than having to deal with enemy medics on the ground. Because I wasn't looking too closely, but they probably have smoke shot or flash shot or hyper morale or something that makes what I'm trying to pull off here a lot more difficult. So just walking forward a few times in the battle seems a lot easier. I probably should have fired that illumination shot right at the start, huh? Yep. Yep, I should have. Ooh, wow. Now it seems really annoying when the AI moves soldiers sort of back and forth just to use one skill. However, even if they were fast enough to do that, and I'm pretty sure they would have if they weren't already lining up a shot, it's still not an invincible strategy, because aside from the shot that you can line up while they're moving forward, as we've observed before, your own infantry will hit them as they're moving backwards. It's actually a pretty decent window for hurting them. Oh, we got this guy. And he's kinda heading up towards my forelegs, who do not like being punched. Well, no one likes being punched, but those guys especially. So I'll need a solution for that one. What's it gonna be, though? If Ayana moves that away towards the pincer, she's probably just gonna get in the way. Also, she might get teamed up on by those last two guys, and that could be a pretty serious problem. Also, that "Hooray, reinforcements are here" music isn't going anywhere, so you better get used to it. Oh, so that's how it is. Either of those two other guys as crew would be a really big problem. No, I do not like dealing with ink shrap, let me tell you. I mean, one would think that seeing a supply unit in the enemy crew, especially with a foreleg, is really bad news. And it kind of is. But special shells, you're well aware of the kind of trouble those things cause. And even though these guys are going to load pretty fast, they don't have any method of illumination, so it's actually not that big a deal. What did I say? Well, although from the timing of it, they must have fired like the moment they loaded a shell, which is very uncharacteristic. Usually at this point of the game they will take some time to line those things up, even if it means they only fire like twice in a round. And when your base chance to hit is something around 20, that's the way to go. I never did quite figure out whether it's optimal to spend a lot of time aiming against soldiers. Also, I really wish there was an indication on whether or not a shot could be obstructed by something, because that kind of changes the game plan quite a bit. As a matter of fact, if this game were ever to get remade, which it won't, but I like thought experiments like this, what would you do with it? Personally, I would change the pacing a fair bit. I understand that the people who developed this game had to work with the game engine, and there are a lot of things that would make the game run smoother that are probably just not possible. And there's an example of moving forward and then quickly back not being a completely safe thing. I wasn't able to line up a shot on them, but the infantry did, and they got chunked down pretty hard. Anyway, how would I change it? So, troop skills would not have cutscenes, first of all. Like, the names of the skills they use would show up. They'd take an action that you could see if you were looking down at the infantry while they were doing it, but it wouldn't do anything special, at least not under most circumstances. And the effect would happen. And you'd see the damage numbers, your AFW would get tied up or whatever else. And the timer wouldn't stop either. And the timer also wouldn't stop when you're firing a shell, and that would be, well, less cinematic. I'm not sure if maximum attacks would have their own cutscene. My gut reaction is to say, yeah, those things are like the most dramatic things in the game. You should get clock stop for that sort of thing. But on the other hand, maximum attacks happen a lot, especially in the later maps. I'm already at the point where I have 8 or 9 of them per map, and that's a lot of time sitting around. So I have to go back to the general policy of nope, those wouldn't stop the timer either. You'd do something, that's for sure. It might even change the camera angle. But it would be shorter. Maybe your portrait would change in a corner of the screen, but overall it would stay working pretty smoothly. The only thing I think that would stop the battle right then and there to play out would be the melee attacks, because those end the fight anyway. So you wouldn't be losing much by keeping it more or less the way it is in this game. Also, that's my solution. Yeah, so those guys can't actually move that far on one turn in this snow. The only problem is I'm kind of gambling a lot here, because I just put Ayane on a river, and if she doesn't score the kill, she's going to definitely be in walking distance of this anti-AFW. That being said, John would probably be able to follow up in time, but that's not a guarantee either, especially since he's not really built for this sort of thing. Oh, speaking of situations where it's worthwhile to take lots of time to line up a shot, this is one of them. When an anti-AFW wants to walk up to you and you want to stop it from doing that, it is definitely a good idea to make sure that you hit. Well, it's not so bad in this case because the enemy is tied up, but when it is able to walk, missing it gives it some free forward movement, which I kind of dislike, and that's another reason I wish that the game worked, well, the way I would do it if I could program and was leading a project in a large company and blah blah blah. Well, maybe not that large for this game, but Who made Ring of Red, anyway? How do I not know that? My apologies. That is the sort of thing I should definitely know if I'm going to do a playthrough of a game. Anyway, in wishful thinking world, these problems would not happen. That's the important part. So, things that would not change. I think that AFW's taking time to set up, and that amount of time differing depending on the AFW is just fine. I like that, and I also think it's cool that heavier shots can actually interrupt them and cost them more time as they have to set up again. Of course, it annoys me a lot when it happens to me, but it's not something that takes me completely by surprise either, because I can just look at what they're using and try and get a feel for how often they fire. All pretty reasonable. Another thing I would change is that I would have conditions like snow not happen for the rest of the game. Yeah, you heard me. There aren't going to be these really heavy snowstorms, but if I remember correctly, every single map for the rest of the game is going to be snow, and that means less movement on the tactical map, and lower accuracies, especially at longer range. And I believe the reasons that they did that are... Well, I actually don't know why they decided that your movement should be kind of restricted for the rest of the game. It might have to do with you having a full complement at that point of the game, and having them all move around exactly as you please could be a little overpowered, I guess. That would actually explain why it happens at roughly the time you get your full party, as it were. The other more understandable reason is to prevent your increased accuracy from leveling up. It would prevent that from getting completely out of hand. Especially for guys like John. Like, if he ever had the ability to aim a shot in clear weather after he'd reached level 20, it would just be pretty much instant. He'd snap up to like 90 or 95% right away, and I would hit a leg or a weapon with each shot. It would be hilarious, and I honestly can't understand why that would be considered a bad thing. Because I like winning and don't particularly care much about game balance, I guess. One map. Give me one map where I can do that. That's all I ask. So this is where I start worrying, and it's also where my hybrid build for Jun makes me a little nervous. When that thing works well, it's amazing. I mean, it's this way in any strategy game, but it's having one unit that can take pretty much any task is ridiculously powerful. If it wasn't a light AFW, it would be straight up OP. But I actually think it works pretty well here. Not only because Jun is kind of fragile, but also because using a hybrid build correctly is really tricky. At least I find it tricky. And you can tell what the problems are when you see the enemy use it, especially in these later maps. Like earlier, when the enemy had like 1 infantry and 1 shooter, that didn't work out for them. But anyway, I believe that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and we will see you next time. I promise there will be a next time, alright? We will see the end of this map. Later.